Hello, Packers fans, wherever you may be. It's time for your Friday game week edition of the Pack Attack Cast for September 5th, 2025. We are 2 days away from Packers versus Lions. Very excited about it. I want to give you a rundown for our schedule for the rest of the week. Saturday is going to be a travel day for me as I travel to Green Bay for the game. I will address any urgent breaking news Saturday night. If there's no breaking news, then we'll have a Sunday morning game day show. We'll have a pregame show early in the day before I travel to the game. So check other sources for last-minute pregame needs. So I will be staying in the Green Bay area, and I'm going to be going to the game over to Lambeau Field a few hours early, so it won't be a super on-time pregame. It's going to be a earlier that morning pregame before I head out to the stadium. So if you need information on injuries or late breaking news, please check other sources other than our pregame show, because it's going to be more of a general show getting you ready for the game, assuming no surprises. So if you get, for example, you want to know, make sure Micah Parsons is playing, make sure Nate Hobbs is playing, other players like that, make sure you check right before the start of the game on ESPN, NFL.com, your other podcasts that are going to have more up-to-the-minute pregame shows, because I will be going to the stadium. Sunday at the stadium, I'm going to try to do some stuff, assuming that the signal works. Try to give you some quick shorts with updates on the game at major impact points. Also going to try to do something to celebrate our 9,000 subs, which we hit yesterday. Very excited about that. So we're going to try to do some at the stadium stuff. It's going to depend on the signal. It might be stuff that we end up recording, but then we can't actually post it until after the game. So watch for all that stuff. And then Sunday night post-game, after the game, once I get back to my hotel, I'll try to do a post-game report. And then we'll be on to the Commanders on Monday, because we don't have a lot of time. There's a very quick turnaround time since we only have 5 days between games. So we're going to jump right into Commanders on Monday. So very excited about the fact that we have 2 Packers games in 5 days. Everybody says, "Oh, that's tough for the Packers. It's really bad luck on the scheduling." Yeah. But you need to keep in mind the Commanders are in the same schedule, and they have to travel to Green Bay, whereas the Packers are staying at home. So in the end, I think it'll be a significant advantage for the Green Bay Packers that they have a 5-day break, because physically the Commanders have to travel. They have to adjust to a new time zone. All the Packers need to do is try to rest as much as possible between the 2 games. One thing you're going to watch very closely next week in between the 2 games is the Packers are probably going to build in a lot of rest days between Sunday and Thursday. It's going to be a lot of walkthroughs. It's going to be a lot of meetings versus a lot of heavy practice, because the reality is the players need time to rest, especially after week 1. There's probably going to be a lot of injury, soft tissue injuries, bruises and contusions and strains, as the teams after week 1 have to build up that callus, that physical callus that naturally NFL players develop as the season progresses, where they can handle these injuries earlier. There's going to probably be a lot of soreness after the game on Sunday. So it makes sense for the Packers to really build in a lot of rest days between Sunday and Thursday. Not necessarily days off, just walkthroughs and less physical practices. And that's really the smart way to go with such a short turnaround. I mean, due to the Commanders' travel alone, the Packers are probably going to have a practice day advantage over the Commanders in week 2, because the Commanders are going to spend a whole day traveling to Green Bay, whereas the Packers can use that day for practice. So, very excited about that. But let's talk about the Commanders next week. Let's focus in on this week's game. We got some news and notes around the NFL, and then we're going to focus on some news and notes for the Lions. And finally, we're going to go through news and notes for the Packers that will impact the game on Sunday. So it's going to be quick hitting. I'm going to go through a lot of things quickly here because we got a lot to cover in just a short stream. So first of all, let's talk about Eagles versus Cowboys. The Eagles looked very mid in this game. Jalen Hurts looks like a nightmare to defend. He ran for 2 touchdowns. That's something the Packers are really going to have to work on before we play them in January. I think it's very realistic that the Packers try to do some sort of a quarterback spy on Jalen Hurts in that game. Wouldn't it be cool to see Cooper as a spy against Jalen Hurts? I think that would be a really cool matchup when we get to that game in January. But the Eagles looked very mid in this game, and they almost lost to a team that had far less talent. The Cowboys, after they traded away their best player, almost beat the Eagles, and the Eagles were at home. Now, there was a lot of mitigating factors. There was an eagle that was thrown out due to spitting. There was a rain delay that probably impacted the rhythm of both teams significantly. Although I would argue that would probably go in the Eagles' favor because they were at home. There was a lot of things, and it was week 1, of course, but the Eagles looked very beatable. And we're going to have to see over the course of the rest of the season if the Eagles kind of fall back to the rest of the pack from a gameplay ability. They did lose their offensive coordinator, so was that a factor in this game in the second half? Could be. Both teams really struggled to score in the second half. So could that be a factor in the Eagles season? We're going to have to watch that very closely. Shout out to Kenny Clark. He looked really good in the game for the Cowboys. He looked really good in the Cowboys colors. It made me sad and melancholy to see him playing for the Cowboys, but we've dealt with this before with Packers that have gone on to other teams. But Kenny Clark looked good in the game. He didn't have a lot of help, but he tried to stop the defense the offense for the Eagles as much as he could. He did get in for, I'm pretty sure, a half a sack. I don't know who got awarded that sack, but Kenny Clark was definitely there. So Kenny Clark probably got a half a sack in that game. So it was very interesting to see the Cowboys almost beat the Eagles in this game. My first thought after the game was, would the Cowboys have won the game with Micah Parsons? They probably would have won the game. Assuming, in an alternate reality, the Cowboys had just paid Micah Parsons and he was healthy and ready to go for the game, I think the Cowboys probably would have won the game against the Eagles. So that leads me really to believe that the Eagles are very vulnerable for a repeat. In fact, the Eagles coaching staff has wisely said consistently, we're not focused on a repeat, we're focused on sustained production. So I think the Eagles might not be, the juggernaut this year that everybody thought they were going to be after they won the Super Bowl. Hats off to the Eagles. They got really hot at the end of the year last year. They were really dominant and put up a good playoff run. No question about it. They looked great in the Super Bowl. But did they lose enough players and coaches to bring them down to the middle of the pack this year? And that's something we're going to watch over the next couple weeks. So let's look at the Lions for this upcoming game. The injury report, we got Salon Vaki with a hamstring injury. He did not practice. I expect him to not play in the game against the Packers. He's not a big issue. Trevor Nowaske, the linebacker, he has an elbow injury, did not practice. I expect him also to be out. Isaac Tesla has an illness, and he was a limited participant in practice for the Lions on Thursday. I expect Tesla to be out there early and often against the Packers, and it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think if there's one player that the Packers are not going to focus the secondary on, it's going to be the third wide receiver for the Lions. The Lions really made a risky move by trading away Tim Patrick right at the end of the preseason and basically saying Tesla is going to be our third wide receiver. Tim Patrick was a very reliable, consistent third wide receiver for the Lions, and now they're putting all of their hopes and dreams into Tesla getting up to speed and being effective in the regular season. He was good in the preseason, not taking that away from Tesla, but playing full games in the regular season is a lot different than playing early in some preseason games against some guys who might not even make the NFL roster. So we're going to have to see if Tesla is as good as the Lions think they are. And we'll probably start seeing that as early as week 1, because if there's one team, I mean, look at the Packers defense. Are you going to not cover Williams? Or you're not going to cover St. Brown? No, absolutely not. You're going to cover those guys as much as possible. We're going to cheat coverage over, especially to St. Brown with the safeties. But Tesla, he's probably going to have one-on-one matchups against our least impactful corner, and we'll see if he can actually be impactful in this game. We also have Coyote Awaska with a shoulder injury. He was a full practice, so expect him to play in the game against the Packers. Now, it's important to mention in this injury report, it's not factoring in Lions that are out in this game that are starters due to injury. So we have Alam McNeil, defensive tackle. I always mispronounce his first name. He is on the PUP with an ACL. He might be back in November in time for the Thanksgiving game, but he will not be playing against the Packers. So that's great news for Josh Jacobs in the running game on Sunday. Malcolm Rodriguez, linebacker, he's also on the PUP with an ACL injury. He also might be back in November. And we have Josh Pascal, edge, non-football injury that's out of this game. So I want to talk about this really quickly because we've got a lot to cover today. McNeil not being there really gives the Packers an extra emphasis to run the ball, especially in the middle of the defense for the Detroit Lions, and try to do some ball control offense in this game. So I think that's going to be very impactful in this game. Rodriguez is an above average linebacker, so that will definitely impact their overall linebacker play and depth. Josh Pascal being out with an edge, with an injury, is pretty significant because the Lions currently only have three edge players that are going to be a factor in this game. So will the Detroit Lions have some fatigue at the edge position in the third and fourth quarters because they don't have the edges to rotate and give their edges breathers? So that's something we definitely have to watch out for. And now let's switch to the Green Bay Packers notes for this game.
And now let's look at some Packers news and notes from this game. Best news I heard yesterday, and I was pumping my fist, and I was all excited about it when I saw the notes. All 53 players participated in practice for your Packers on Thursday. That includes Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs was back in practice for the first time since July. Now, I don't know this for sure. This is my prediction. My prediction is Nate Hobbs will be limited snaps on Sunday. Don't be surprised if Nate Hobbs is primarily playing in the slot on limited snaps and Corey Valentine starts at outside corner. Don't let this panic you. Don't let it concern you, because this really just makes sense from a game planning standpoint. Corey Valentine has been practicing every practice since the start of training camp. He's got lots of reps at outside corner. Nate Hobbs has not practiced since July. It makes every bit of sense in the world that Valentine will start at outside corner in this game instead of Nate Hobbs. Now, the Packers might let him practice Thursday, Friday, and then decide on game day that they want to start Nate Hobbs. But more likely than not, I think Valentine will be your starter at outside corner week one, and Nate Hobbs will primarily play in the slot on passing downs. So Nate Hobbs will still get plenty of playing time, but I think it makes sense for Nate Hobbs to play in the slot as their slot nickel for this game. The slot really involves a lot more lateral quickness versus up and down the field quickness, which will probably benefit Nate Hobbs since he's coming back from a knee injury. And given limited reps, it makes sense for Nate Hobbs to start in the slot. In addition, it's going to limit those snaps and help him ramp up for the rest of the season. So don't be surprised about that. Don't be panicked about it. I think that's the most likely scenario for this game. Let's talk about Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed also was back in practice since everybody practiced, right? Logically, Jayden Reed practiced. Expect Jayden Reed to be primarily in 3 receiver sets this game. That's going to be for 2 reasons. Number one, Matthew Golden was listed as an outside starter. So in 2 receiver sets, you're going to have Matthew Golden out there instead of Jayden Reed. And also having Jayden Reed play in 3 receiver sets limits his reps as he gets back up to speed after his foot injury. So that makes a lot of sense. Jayden Reed can still make his hay in 3 receiver sets in clear passing downs while they limit his actual snaps and pressure on his recovering leg. I think the more I look at this game, I think the key to the Packers' success in this game is going to be 2 things. Number one, running the ball with Josh Jacobs. Number 2, Matthew Golden being an impact player in this game. I would love to see Matthew Golden to get 70 or 80 yards and a touchdown in this game. If Matthew Golden is playing well in this game, the Packers are most likely going to win the game. That shouldn't be a surprise, but I think Golden is going to be a really big focus of success in this game. Why? Romeo Doubs is going to be covered by the Lions' best corner most of the game. We've got Jayden Reed that will be limited in his snaps due to the 3 wide receiver sets and the fact that he's coming back from an injury. And I think the Detroit Lions, if they have to pick their poison, are going to say, hey, rookie wide receiver, why don't you show that you can win this game? So I think Matthew Golden is going to have one-on-one matchups throughout this game, and I think he's going to be the key to success along with running the ball with Josh Jacobs. Other news for the Packers. Punter Whelan got a 2-year extension for $7 million. That might seem like a lot of money, but the truth of the matter is Whelan has been very good in the preseason and the regular and training camp. He's also looked good the last 2 regular seasons for the Packers, so it makes sense for the Packers to lock up their punter for the next 2 years. So you don't have to worry about your punter or your kicker for the foreseeable future. This is a good thing. Whelan is very underrated, and he consistently makes plays that put the Packers in the best position to win from the punting position. So I have no problem with them spending $7 million over 2 years for a really high-quality punter that they have a lot of confidence in. So you can save your, that's too much money for a punter. They could spend the money elsewhere. The truth of the matter is punters are important. And just like we learned last year when we tried to play loosey-goosey with the kicker, we don't want to play loosey-goosey with our punter this year. We want our special teams specialists, the kicker and the punter, to be the best we can be. And we currently have that right now, so no problems with that. Next up, I want to touch really closely. Micah Parsons had a lot of complimentary things to say yesterday about his teammates on the defensive side of the ball. He said great things about the defensive tackles. He said great things about Lucas Van Ness and the defensive ends. He was very complimentary. So that tells me one of 2 things. One, he's being a great teammate and a leader by complimenting the rest of the players around him. And number 2, this is probably the best defense that Micah Parsons has ever played for. Look at the stats last year. When Micah Parsons played for the Cowboys, they were one of the best defenses in the league. When he was out, the Cowboys were one of the worst defenses in the league. That tells me Micah Parsons carried the Cowboys defense over the last couple of years. That also tells me logically that Micah Parsons is playing with the best group of players on defense he's ever had before, which means that his impact in the game is going to even be higher than in the past, and his opportunities for success are going to be better because it's going to be harder for defenses to double and triple team Micah Parsons because the rest of the Packers personnel is very solid fundamentally. So it's very likely that Parsons might have his best year this year after he ramps up for a week or 2. Parsons might get number 1 in sacks in the league. It would not surprise me. He might also be more dominant and consistent in his production because the rest of his teammates are more consistent and solid in their production. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. I don't think we're going to see the full Micah Parsons show until we get to week 3 against the Browns. So we're going to watch that very closely. So one feature that I want to take a look at, and we're going to try to do this consistently as long as I see a good bet, is we're going to have our Packers parlay of the week, where I pick a parlay that I think gives us the advantage to, number 1, root for our Packers. That's always number 1. When I gamble, I'm always rooting for the Packers, and just to make the game a little bit more fun and exciting, especially if I'm tracking stats for particular players. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and share my Packers parlay of the week. So this is my Packers parlay that I put together. This is not sponsored by any sport book. However, any sports book that would like to set up some sort of a sponsorship with our stream, please reach out to me at packattackcast.com. packattackcast@gmail.com is where you want to reach out to me for setting up some sort of a sponsorship. But this is what I have for the Packers on Sunday. I have the Packers money line. I'm a little concerned about the current spread. I actually have the spread on a number of bets at 1.5, which was the original spread before we got Micah Parsons, which I feel is much closer to what this game is going to be. So if I'm betting now, I will take the Packers money line, so the Packers to win, Josh Jacobs to score a touchdown, Jordan Love for 200 plus yards, which I think is very reasonable, Josh Jacobs 80 plus yards in this game, and Matthew Golden 50 plus yards for this game. I think this is a really nice wager if you're looking for a Packers parlay for week number 1. So once again, gamble responsibly, and this is not sponsored by any sportsbook. This is purely my thoughts on a really fun parlay for the game. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Pack Attack Cast for Friday. We will see you on Sunday, unless there's breaking news on Saturday, because Saturday will be a travel day for me as I travel to Green Bay for the game. And we'll talk to you on Sunday morning before the game. We'll try to do some updates during the game from the stadium. And of course, we will have a Sunday night wrap-up show for this game against the Lions. And we'll see you then. We are almost there, folks. We are a little over 48 hours away from Packers versus Lions. Talk to you then. As always, go Pack Go. And hopefully you'll have a successful and fun Sunday. And we'll talk to you Sunday morning.